Hello there and welcome back to Macro Waves. In this video, I'm going to attempt to discuss the strawberry supermoon that we just had. We're going to look at Saturn Square Uranus and the Mars opposite Saturn situation in the astrology and the Bitcoin price analysis. So as I mentioned, I'm going to attempt to pull this all together. I've got a lot of things to share with you. This is my second video ever on YouTube. As you may or may not know, in my previous video, I mentioned that I'm doing this completely for fun. I wasn't planning on doing this. I just need to get this out of my system and share it because I think it's really, really interesting. And before I continue, please always remember that this is not financial advice. Do your own research. This is purely edutainment combining Bitcoin, macro investing with the astrology. And in my last video that you may or may not have watched, if you want to watch it, check it out. The link will pop up in just a moment. I talked about the Saturn Square Uranus transit, and that was the main theme for 2021. As you could see here in the chart below, if I just highlight that for you there, you can see this huge run up going into 2021. We had a peak over here. That was the first peak, then the second peak over here, and then we have at the end of this year we have a third peak coming up. But right now I'm going to really focus on this recent peak we had in mid-June, which is the Saturn Square Uranus. That's the second peak, so to speak. And then we're going to look more closely at the Mars opposite Saturn, which is really coming into effect, I'd say, the first and second week of July, and really comes to an end, I'd say, mid-July. So this is really the area I want to focus on for this video. Please bear with me. I'm not an expert in astrology, but I do consider myself quite a seasoned macro investor. So I guess that's where I'd like to start off, if you don't mind. I'm going to just put this away for a moment. The strawberry supermoon, by the way, the strawberry name is given, I think, the media is giving that the popular name, but the actual full moon, it was a full moon in Capricorn on June 24th. So it's quite an optimistic supermoon, pretty flamboyant. It's more on the positive and constructive side of the full moons that we've had this year so far. So it's on a personal level, you can take advantage of it if you know what you're doing. But let me dive in first of all, since we're talking about the moon, I want to go to the Bitcoin price first of all. I want to give you a quick update since my last video where we are. This is the daily chart on BTC. We're on Bitstamp Exchange, just so you know. Now, what I think is playing out here, as I mentioned in the previous video, but I didn't really elaborate on my larger framework for it. And I mentioned the Whyckoff distribution, that we're coming to the end of it, that we're not really seeing an accumulation phase yet, that we're kind of moving towards the end of phase D and into phase E. And let me show you what I'm generally looking for here. We had the all-time high. Let me just do the waves. What I'm seeing is a 5-wave correction down. So we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to put it, just for now, I'm going to put it to around about, end of the first week of July, just for argument's sake, somewhere there. So as you can see, a lot of people in crypto are saying, this is a triple bottom here. Let me just grab a quick pen to highlight that. A lot of people are saying that this area is a triple bottom and we're going to break up and we're going to go flying back up to the all-time high, or at least we're going to come up and go sideways for a while and then come up. I don't think so. Let me know what you think, but to me, this area of contention is a show of support, and what it really is that it's signaling actually a sign of weakness, that we're in that macro 5-wave move down to complete the Whyckoff distribution to phase E. So what I'm really thinking about is I'm thinking somewhere around here, we're going to complete that phase when we have the astrology showing us that it's kind of coming to a culmination point here, first, second week of July. And then we will see that massive automatic rally. Whether or not it can break this trend line is a debate for another, is a topic for another video. So please let me know if you'd like me to keep doing videos on this. But at least we're going to see an automatic rally from those kind of levels. But that, again, that's a topic for another video. Let's just dive a bit further into the Bitcoin price. I'm on the daily. Please note I'm on the daily. Now, as you can see, I had an exponential line here in white, the dotted white line here. To be honest, as I mentioned in the previous video, it was a bit of panic buying, and that's really being confirmed at the moment. As you can see from the price, it's starting to touch that exponential line. So whether or not it can get support within this triangle, and then if it can do something like this, or if it goes down a bit further, that remains to be seen. But I'm still looking at this support to be broken and for it to come down further to complete those longer wave cycles, as I mentioned. So let's go back a bit. I want to talk about the moon, the lunar cycle. So let me get the lunar cycles on here for you. And I want to give you a quick update related to the lunar cycles. I ended my last video talking about the lunar cycles. Now, I have had plenty of experience trading, leverage trading, all kinds of trading, all kinds of charts, markets. I have a lot of experience in that. I'm not saying to you should trade around lunar phases, definitely not. But what it does point to, and I'll just recap what I talked about in the last video. Let me just get rid of all these notes here. Oops. Right, let me get the lunar thing up here. Right. As you can see, we're coming up to a full moon. Actually, we already had the full moon yesterday. Today is the 25th of June, but on the daily chart, it hasn't printed the full moon yet. There's another 16 hours to go until the next daily candle closes. So that's what I want to bring your attention to. Oops. Is that we still have yet to print the full moon. And as you can see from the history, when we go back in history on the daily chart, the new moon is generally a high and the full moon is generally a low. It doesn't map exactly, and it's sometimes lagging or ahead of itself, but it's generally the case. So my argument is that, are we going to print the next full moon icon or signal down here, or is it going to be up here? Is it going to be above here? Now that would go against the trend, right? As you can see, it's always followed a trend. So where are we going to print that next full moon? Will it be below this full moon? Will it be down here? That remains to be seen. So I'm being very cautious what's going to happen in the next 24 and 48 hours. Okay, now let's go back to the main screen here. So I've talked about the lunar phases and how Bitcoin maps to full moons and new moons. And we still have to close the daily candle for the Bitcoin price. Let me just review with you what I'm seeing in the dollar so far. We had a massive increase in dollar strength. We've had a little bit of a back test to support. What remains to be seen is whether support can hold, or if we're going to get another impulse move higher. If we get an impulse and breakout of this consolidation pattern, it might be a little bit early days yet for this pattern. But if we do see that, that would be quite unexpected, and we might see a massive drop in the stock market. Now, the recent all-time high in the SPX, the S&P 500, this is the daily chart of the S&P 500 index. We broke all-time highs yesterday, but please remember, if you're in investing, if you're an investor or trader, this drive was mostly retail. This is not institutional push. So we need to be very, very cautious. Yes, we can definitely we can see, we can see 4,300 level easily with a retail drive, but we just have to be very cautious in the next day, in the next few sessions, because this push is retail driven, not institutional driven. So please be warned that a correction can happen at any moment, and do pay attention to the DXY as well, the dollar strength, the dollar index. Now, I've talked about BTC, I've talked about the DXY, I've talked very briefly about the S&P 500. What I'd like to also quickly do before we go further into the next thing I want to talk about is Mars opposite Saturn going into July, and the feelings associated with that, and also the feelings associated with how it's reigniting the Saturn Square Uranus return that we just had recently. So please bear with me. I'm trying to compose a lot of ideas in my mind on the spot here. I just want to show you another chart here. This is lookintobitcoin.com. This is a chart showing the relative unrealized profit and loss, the relative unrealized profit and loss, the market cap minus realized cap divided by the market cap of Bitcoin. And I want to show your attention here, where you can see the different phases with the green, capitulation, hope and fear. Then we move to optimism, denial, greed, and then euphoria. And you could see that when Bitcoin was at its peak back in, let me see, just to go back, when we had the all-time high, anywhere really between end of February to mid-April, right, we can see that we were in euphoria. Yeah, you can see that exactly. We came out of euphoria just recently. Mid-June, we went back into greed. Yeah, we're just on the verge there. And you can see very interestingly, we started to drop. When you look at this is the, let me just show you the legend, for example, here. The BTC price is this line, and the relative unrealized profit is the darker line, just so you know that, right? That, the relative unrealized profit, you could see it took a massive nosedive around the 20th, 21st of February. Massive nosedive back into optimism and denial. So we're in an optimism and denial phase right now in the market in terms of the relative unrealized profit and loss. And so when I look at where the Bitcoin price is right now, we're kind of in this consolidating area. That kind of represents to me this triple bottom. That represents to me that hope that are we going back up like crazy with the Bitcoin price? It's kind of like that optimism that, yes, this is a triple bottom. It's only up from here, and then the denial of it. Like, no, we couldn't be. We're going to go lower. We're kind of like in that limbo phase, right? Right. So that I find very interesting to note, right? So the thing to mix in with that feeling of optimism and denial when looking at the unrealized profit and loss, and when you look at where we are right now in the big scheme of things, we're still in June, 25th of June, and we're moving into July, where you can see Saturn Square Uranus has come off the high mid-June. We've come off the highs, and it's kind of this is a transit, right? So I believe it's losing, since it's high mid-June, it's losing its power. It's losing its power, but it's it will be becoming reignited by the Mars opposite Saturn coming up very, very soon, 1st of July, in fact. Okay, so that will reignite the Saturn Square Uranus. So we might see some huge moves still to play out. But will those moves happen to the upside in the BTC price, or will they be reflected more to the downside in the BTC price with this Mars opposite Saturn? So what is Mars opposite Saturn going to do to the BTC price? Will it, let me just go to my polyline, will it do, coming up to the 1st of July, just go over here. That's why I have this white line. If you can see this white line, will we see this massive bounce here, or at least some kind of recovery? Or will we see that 5-wave thing play out that I talked about just now? Something like that. And then a recovery. That's the kind of thing you got to think of with what's coming up. So let me know what your thoughts are. I'm just putting this together. I think this is super interesting, and I'm learning every single day. And what I want to really share with you is this podcast, the astrology podcast, awesome by Chris Brennan. Please subscribe, hit on the notifications. He's awesome. And I just recently watched the most recent video for July with Joe Gleason and Austin Coppock here in the middle on the right here. And they just covered this in detail, the July 2021 astrology forecast, Mars opposite Saturn, Jupiter and Aquarius. Now, we won't go into Jupiter and Aquarius. That's not the scope of this video. I'm really focusing on the Mars Saturn and how that's influencing Saturn Square Uranus. So let's go into that for a moment on the Bitcoin price. So what is this all about? I want to read some things here. Mars opposite Saturn natal, okay, requires a lot of hard work to master. For some karmic reason associated with violence or sex, you might have to fight hard to get what you want out of life. A certain amount of frustration and disappointment may be experienced before you enjoy the satisfaction of having your strong desires fulfilled. So it goes on to say you'll be forced to compete for your fair share. Most often your wants and needs will be blocked by another person, though sometimes a fated event will block your path. Anger is the first step to deal with this, because this combination of both malefic planets can turn nasty and spiteful. Timing is important dealing with your anger. You tend to hold on to anger way too long, which is not good for your health. Yet you also need to give yourself time to understand your feelings, plan your actions, etc., etc. You'll find the right mix of patience and initiate an initiative with time and experience. Now, this is really interesting to me because it maps with what they were talking about in the video. And I want to highlight some things that they talked about in the video. Because first of all, before we map Mars opposite Saturn onto Saturn Square Uranus, I want to talk about what does Saturn Square Uranus feel like. And Joe Gleason in this video, she talks about trying to make things more sustainable. We're going through a great time of change. Uranus is big change, upheaval, it's disruption. Saturn Square Uranus, so that you can see in the bottom chart here, we have the 3 peaks. Saturn Square Uranus is all about upheaval, disruption, adapting and evolving, and trying to move too fast, too strong as well. It's kind of like accelerating too fast, breaking old structures. That's what Joe talks about. And Joe asked really good questions here. How do we gain control? How do we adapt? What do you want out of it? What's our purpose? What are the big insights we're having? And when I look at the disruptive forces that are going on this year and what's happening with Bitcoin, how it's one of the currency disruptive forces out there, right? Store of values. I think about this, what purpose does it really play? Is it moving too fast? Is the disruptive force that is Bitcoin, is it moving too fast? Is it ready yet? But the problem is that all these forces of Uranus, of disruptions and big changes, are opposed by Saturn. Saturn says, no, slow down Bitcoin, slow down Uranus. You're moving way too fast. You need more structure. You're jumping the gun. You need to be more sustainable. And what is one of the main themes in the last couple of months been, with Elon Musk, with Tesla pulling out of Bitcoin because sustainability fears? What about all the Bitcoin miners being kicked out of China, creating a lot of FUD in the Bitcoin price, on sustainability issues, and the miners moving to more sustainable jurisdictions in the world where they can set up mining facilities. This is really interesting. The big questions are, if we want to move forward with the disruptive forces, that is, stores of values like currency and Bitcoin and stuff, we need to be more sustainable before we can jump. So that leads me on to believe that the area of consolidation we're in is just, we're just taking a breather before Bitcoin needs to go, okay, slow down a bit more. We need more time, i.e., we need to consolidate more. And if I look at what's going on here in the Saturn Square Uranus chart below, as you can see, until October, it's really reaching a bottom at October. So we have this kind of down period of consolidation time that maybe maps to the Bitcoin price. Please let me know if you find that interesting. We need more time to consolidate before we test things. And then Austin, also some really interesting things here. Austin Coppock on the right there in this episode, he says this on the sustainability idea. We are, and I quote, we are pressure testing the stability of things, not just Bitcoin. We're testing we're pressure testing whether or not organizations globally can withstand the test. But can this also refer to Bitcoin in terms of testing the sustainability of things? Right? Does Bitcoin need more real adoption? Does it need to gain more real world adoption until it can pass the final test, or is it too early? And Austin also says, which institutions are not sustainable in their current form? So that's the time I believe we're in. And Chris Brennan on the left there, he talks about that at the moment we're being pushed. Mars in Saturn, that's now what I'm getting to here. Mars opposite Saturn coming up now in July, 1st of July. It's like being pushed faster than you want to be. And Saturn says, well, being forced to grind to a halt and do things more deliberately, slowing down. So what is slowing down? Are we slowing down? Who's slowing down? So when I look at the Mars opposite Saturn transit, Mars opposite Saturn transit brings frustration, disappointment, and anger. Frustration is due to other people standing in your way. Disappointment comes from unfulfilled desires. Oh no, the Bitcoin price is crashing again. Could be. The resulting anger is difficult to express, therefore requires patience and self-discipline. So are we going to go through more downturns, more consolidation? That requires more patience. I don't know. Let me know what you think. Does this make sense to you? As mentioned earlier, I'm reading here further. You may initially find it hard to show your anger. You might need time to understand what just happened or recover from the shock. Are we headed for a big period of shock? However, it's important for you to get the anger out of your body. Otherwise, this hot and destructive energy would remain trapped deep inside, harming your body, mind, and spirit. So there's a release. I remember Austin Coppock in this video, he talked about we're entering in July a period of something needs to be released. Energy needs to be released. Bitcoin is a store of value. Bitcoin is energy. Maybe it's in the middle of releasing, or it's about to release its energy before it can consolidate and come back again. Because remember, I'm a huge Bitcoin bull. I consider me, I guess, a maximalist. But I also look at all the other sides. And the last part here, what is required on a positive note, self-discipline, patience, determination can lead to satisfying results. So sharpen your knives, don't use them. This is, by the way, Astrology King. So let me know what your thoughts on this. I don't want to make this video too long, but this is a quick update. I would love to hear your thoughts. And do give us a subscribe on Macro Waves if you like this kind of content. I've got a really busy professional side outside of this, but I really just love astrology, and I love investing and what's going on in the crypto space, and I love fundamental analysis. I love technical analysis, and I'm loving the astrology. So please let me know if you want more content like this, because I've got lots and lots of ideas for you. And head over to Macro Waves to subscribe to my page. Leave a comment if you found this interesting, or if you have any ideas for future videos. Give us a like, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye for now, and as always, take care.